It echoed in the ballroom, my cousin Tiffany's shrill laughter bouncing off the crystal chandeliers. Penelope, an artist? Honey, your doodles barely qualify as fridge magnets. Around her, a ripple of forced chuckles spread through my extended family, gathered for Great Aunt Mildred's annual and notoriously pretentious charity gala. I could feel their eyes on me, pitying, condescending, the same looks they'd been giving me since I was a child, clutching crayons instead of couture. My cheeks burned, not just from the embarrassment, but from the familiar sting of being dismissed, of being the black sheep in a flock of impeccably tailored swans. Tonight, it was amplified, the glittering backdrop of their success, making my own perceived failures even starker. I forced a tight smile, clutching my small clutch, the weight of the canvas bag hidden beneath the table, a secret I wasn't ready to unveil. Not yet. They'd always been like this. My family, the Harrisons, names synonymous with old money, Ivy League degrees, and a certain polished disdain for anything unconventional. My father, bless his quiet soul, had tried to shield me, but even he carried the subtle disappointment in his eyes, a silent wish that I'd chosen a more stable path than the messy, unpredictable world of paint and canvas. My older brother Chad, a rising star in corporate law, would pat my head condescendingly at family dinners, asking if I'd finally sold any of those abstract things. Tiffany, oh Tiffany. Her life was a curated Instagram feed of designer clothes and exotic vacations, a constant, glaring contrast to my cramped studio apartment and ramen noodle dinners. She'd once told me, with a saccharine sweetness that dripped venom, that my little hobby was cute, but I should really focus on finding a nice husband to take care of me. I remember one Christmas, I was maybe 16. I'd poured my heart and soul into a watercolor landscape for my grandmother. It wasn't perfect, my teenage hands still clumsy with the brush, but it was mine. Tiffany had unwrapped her diamond earrings, and then, seeing my gift, had let out a theatrical sigh. Oh, Penelope, how thoughtful. The way she said thoughtful was anything but. Later, I overheard her whispering to her mother, "Honestly, it looks like a child did it. Doesn't she know Grandma only likes oils?" My grandmother had displayed it, eventually, tucked away in a dusty corner of the attic. That Christmas, something inside me, a fragile bud of artistic confidence, had begun to wither. There were other times, too. The college application season, when my insistence on art school was met with open derision. Art? Chad had scoffed. What are you going to do with an art degree, Penelope? Starve. They'd pressured me, relentlessly, to pursue something practical, something that would secure a respectable future. I'd relented, partially, enrolling in a general studies program at the local university, but every spare moment was spent in the art studio. The smell of turpentine and oil, paint my only solace. I took night classes, weekend workshops, devouring every book and tutorial I could find. It was my secret rebellion, a quiet defiance against their expectations. Years passed in a blur of part-time jobs to fund my passion, countless hours hunched over canvases, and the constant, nagging feeling of being an outsider in my own family. They celebrated Chad's promotions, Tiffany's engagement to a wealthy banker, their lives unfolding in a predictable trajectory of success and social standing. I was the anomaly, the forgotten one, occasionally invited to family events out of obligation, my artistic pursuits a source of amusement or, at best, polite indifference. Then, about 3 years ago, everything shifted. I'd been working on a series of large-scale abstract pieces, channeling all my frustrations, my unspoken emotions, onto the canvas. It was raw, visceral, and terrifyingly honest. I poured myself into those paintings, each stroke a silent scream against years of being overlooked. I started showing my work at small, local galleries, the rejections piling up alongside the occasional glimmer of interest. One rainy afternoon, a woman walked into my tiny studio. She introduced herself as Eleanor Vance, a renowned art collector and curator. She spent hours looking at my paintings, her silence more intense than any criticism I'd ever received. Finally, she turned to me, her eyes sharp and perceptive. "There's a fire in these, Penelope," she said, her voice low. "A story, and it needs to be seen." Eleanor became my champion. She introduced me to galleries I'd only dreamed of, connected me with influential figures in the art world. She saw something in my work that my own family had been blind to, a depth and power that transcended their narrow definitions of success. Slowly, tentatively, my career began to take flight. My paintings, once dismissed as childish scribbles, started to garner attention, then praise, then serious offers. It was a gradual climb, each small victory a quiet affirmation of my worth. I didn't tell my family, not yet. Let them continue in their comfortable assumptions, their pitying smiles. My success was my own, hard-earned and fiercely guarded. I poured all my energy into my art. The validation I received from the art world a balm to the old wounds inflicted by my family's constant dismissal. Then came the call, about 6 weeks ago. Eleanor's voice was brimming with excitement. "Penelope, darling," she'd said, "we have an offer, a very significant offer. A prominent New York gallery, known for representing some of the biggest names in contemporary art, wanted to host a solo exhibition of my work. And not just any exhibition. The opening night was already generating buzz, with major collectors and critics on the guest list. That's when the idea started to form. A quiet, simmering sense of, not revenge, exactly, more like a long-awaited reckoning. I accepted the gallery's offer. I worked tirelessly, preparing my best pieces, the culmination of years of hidden passion and relentless dedication. The opening was scheduled for tonight, the same night as Aunt Mildred's ridiculous gala, which brings us back to this ballroom, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume and hollow laughter. I'd received the obligatory invitation, a gilded piece of cardstock that felt like a relic from another planet. I almost hadn't come, but then a different kind of feeling had settled in, a quiet confidence I hadn't known I possessed. I wasn't the same Penelope they remembered, the one who shrank under their judgment. Tiffany was still holding court, regaling her friends with tales of her latest shopping spree in Paris. She caught my eye and offered a pitying smile. "So, Penelope," she drawled, "still dabbling in your artwork?" This was it, the moment I'd unknowingly been working towards for years. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my water, placing the glass down with a soft clink. "Actually, Tiffany," I said, my voice steady and clear, cutting through the surrounding chatter, "my artwork is doing rather well." A few polite coughs rippled through the immediate vicinity. Chad, ever the concerned older brother, when it suited him, stepped forward. "Oh, that's good, Penelope. Keeping busy, are you?" I reached under the table, carefully lifting the canvas bag onto my lap. I unzipped it slowly, deliberately, the sound amplified in the sudden hush that had fallen over our small group. I pulled out my phone, the screen displaying a news article with a bold headline, "Local artist Penelope Harrison shatters expectations with $10 million. Sale ahead of major exhibition." The accompanying image was a photo of my largest abstract piece, the one they'd probably scoffed at the most in my cramped studio. A collective gasp went through the small circle. Tiffany's perfectly painted smile faltered, her eyes widening in disbelief. Chad's jaw literally dropped. My Aunt Beatrice, who had once suggested I take up knitting instead of wasting my time with those messy paints, stared at the phone screen as if it were a venomous snake. I held up my phone, letting them see the headline clearly. "This," I said, my voice calm and even, "is one of my doodles, as you called it, Tiffany. It sold this afternoon for $10 million. The opening of my solo exhibition in New York is tonight. I'm afraid I won't be able to stay for the rest of the gala." The silence was deafening. All the polite chatter of the ballroom seemed to fade away, leaving only the stunned expressions on their faces. I could see the calculations flickering in their eyes, The sudden shift from dismissal to something akin to awe, mixed with a healthy dose of disbelief and perhaps even a touch of envy. My cousin's fiancé, the wealthy banker, leaned closer to Tiffany, whispering something I didn't need to hear to understand. The social hierarchy had just been subtly, yet irrevocably, rearranged. The black sheep had suddenly become the golden goose. I stood up, the canvas bag now feeling lighter. The weight of their judgment finally lifted. As I turned to leave, my Aunt Beatrice found her voice, a thin, reedy sound. 10 million for one painting? I paused at the edge of the group, turning back to face them. Yes, Aunt Beatrice, I said, a small, genuine smile finally gracing my lips. It seems my messy paints have finally amounted to something. I walked away, the weight of their stares on my back, no longer a burden, but a quiet acknowledgement of my triumph. Outside, my ride was waiting. As the car pulled away from the glittering facade of the Harrison family's world, I looked back one last time. The lights still shone brightly. The music still drifted on the night air. But for me, the show was over. My own was just beginning. The New York gallery awaited, filled with people who saw value in what I created, who recognized the years of passion and dedication poured onto each canvas. Tonight, there would be no forced smiles or condescending remarks. Tonight, I would be surrounded by those who understood the language of my soul. And as the city lights twinkled in the distance, a sense of quiet satisfaction settled within me. The laughter in the ballroom no longer echoed in my ears. Instead, I heard the whispers of possibility, the promise of a future built on my own terms, fueled by the very passion they had once mocked. The chosen one wasn't who they thought it was, and now they knew it too.